The voice of sharing, 旅人的香。
ASEAN Breakfast Call. First and foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hi, good morning. This is Gowri.
Hello, this is Grace.
And how is everyone doing this Monday morning? We're back to work finally after our weekend break.
First day of week, and yes, finally we get to work again.
So I actually just joined a gym, so I went to work out yesterday.
How did it
And,
go?
well, my whole body is aching today and I'm in so much pain.
Oh no, but then I guess that's a good sign. You just gotta get used to it.
It is a good sign. It's definitely important to work out, especially with what our youth minister Gowri is doing. He started the Fit Malaysia campaign and he also ran a marathon with the people, and that is definitely a good sign for a healthy Malaysia. And we should all start working out, join a gym, go for a run, anything simple.
So are you gonna be the next ambassador?
Ambassador for I'll
Health
probably be
fitness.
the new minister for sports.
You could actually, because you are a big fan of football as well.
I am. And speaking of football, Brazil, the Brazil international football team has just arrived in Singapore for their clash against Japan in Tuesday. And of course, the Singaporeans were very excited. They went and camped at the airport to wait for the team to show up. And it goes without saying that Neymar actually got the most attention.
Of course, he's a celebrity now. And what did exactly happen in Singapore? How long are they gonna stay there?
They'll be there just for a couple of days until their match against Japan is over. Then it's back to the league games.
All right, then what's your prediction on this Brazil versus Japan?
Brazil is a pretty strong team, so probably not coming up with a prediction, but Brazil is probably gonna win this. But you never know. Japan could always surprise us.
Well, that's also true. And then it also says that Brazil are many people's second favorite team with their many individual talents like Neymar that you mentioned and also David Luiz. Is that correct?
Yep, David Luiz.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes like on Tuesday, right?
Right.
Okay.
And on a more serious note, just to go through a couple of headlines in Malaysia where we have a holistic budget that covers all levels of education. And of course, the budget was tabled last Friday. And this whole week, we'll be having a post-budget analysis with all our speakers.
As well as discussions.
So don't forget to tune into that one to see what our experts have to say about the budget that was presented last Friday. And apart from that, the PM also gives assurance on SJKC for Chinese-centered schools. So on another news, we have Bosnians who we know about Scotland when they wanted independence from the United
UK.
Kingdom. And then we have Catalonia trying to separate from Spain. And today we have Bosnians who are actually voting and hope for a little change.
So also not to forget about Hong Kong, the protest that they want
That's
to
right.
get the freedom from China itself. So what's happening here is Bosnians voted in general elections, mounting social discontent over endemic corruption, ethnic disputes, and economic woes that have troubled and reapproachment with the European Union.
And nearly 20 years since a devastating war between its Croats, Muslims, and Serbs, Bosnia-Herzegovina is one of Europe's poorest nations and remains split along its ethnic lines. And of course, ethnic split is not something that is only happening in Bosnia. It's happening pretty much in a lot of countries all around the world, even in Southeast Asia. But it's probably the worst case that's happening in Bosnia right now, especially in the, as it's mentioned here, 1992 to 1995 conflict, which killed almost 100,000 people and left the former Yugoslav Republic divided into two semi-autonomous entities, that the ethnic Serb Republikas and the Muslim Croat Federation.
And also, in addition to that, one of the political analysts said these are the most uncertain elections ever, and also expected to see the poverty and the social problems that will especially increase, and then they will also lead to put pressure on politicians to change the way they work, as opposed to coming from their own desire for change.
And they also have problems in terms of government jobs because it's reserved for the three main ethnic groups, and they also have very limited Western efforts to encourage them for a reform. But of course, that is also a subjective thing. You don't always need people from outside to come in and interfere with your matters. The government can obviously do something about it, but they're not getting enough pressure. They're not being motivated to actually go for reform and go for equality for all, which is also another universal problem that we're facing in Myanmar with the Rohingyas, even in Malaysia. When it comes to equality, it's always a very tricky thing because there's always certain main ethnic groups that is given priority.
Equality is one thing, and also we have to think in terms of economical wise, where when one nation or one region wants to be independent from the country, it's actually, even though no matter the size of the region, it will definitely bring a huge impact to the nation. For example, the Scotland and the Hong Kong, all these other countries, they tried to be independent from the countries. So we'll see how it goes like. But then this Bosnia, the elections and also try to be independent for hope of change. We'll see how it goes like.
Right, and also this may actually be the biggest election upset that may come in the Serb Republic, where a coalition of opposition parties actually are hoping to end the 8-year dominance of Bosnian Serb leader Milorad Dodik, who campaigned on calls for the secession of the region from Bosnia. And they also said that it's high time to end the standstill, and I think politicians have matured enough to come out of this vicious cycle. So all the best to Bosnia and in their quest for equality and independence.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on, we all have another tough act, also in terms of reform, but this is more in terms of Malaysia's economy.
So tough balancing act to reform Malaysia's economy, like you said. After our PM announced about the budget 15, and it also says that with barely 6 years to transform Malaysia into a high-income economy, his administration has little choice but to take up the mantle and to do the unpopular move of the speeding up the necessity reforms and sustain it beyond the momentous year. I mean, he gave the speech on the 10th of October, and what we really truly feel about this is even after the presentation, the people's expectation on this wasn't that high, because throughout the years until this year 2014, the execution wasn't done properly. After he gave the speech on the budget 2014 on certain areas, so of course people were disappointed. So that also affected the Malaysian's economic when it came to this. So PM really has to work on how to execute all these plans after he gave the speech on the budget 2015.
And 6 years is a pretty short time for economic reform, and also it's being done in line with our Vision 2020, of course, to become a high-income nation, and which is what our Prime Minister is focusing right now. All his policies are heading towards transforming Malaysia into a high-income nation as opposed to other areas in the country. And there's been a lot of criticism on that as well, in terms of are we ready? Are the people in Malaysia ready? Because Malaysia is Malaysia. KL is different. If you go to Penang, KL,
Definitely.
and other cities, of course, it seems like we're ready. We're pretty developed. We're living a modern lifestyle, and we can cope with the globalization. But there are also a lot of other regions in Malaysia where people are still not so developed. The place still kind of left behind, and people are still very much in their traditional ways, and that's fine, of course, but that should all be taken into account when coming up with these new policies for the country, and not just look at the urban areas and the big cities.
I mean, definitely there is still a lot more to work to be done. And also, I mean, going for the advanced economy is one thing, but then also, like you mentioned, taking consideration of all those suburban areas is also another thing. So it is quite tough, but we have to ensure that quality is there for life of people, and also in terms of equitable distribution of wealth and the resources to the society itself, so we can sustain the growth patterns for the country. And the 2015 budget 2015 is actually the final one under the 10th Malaysian plan. So we are going for the 11th one. So it was pretty crucial to public when the PM gave the speech about 2015, and to move faster before the country embarks on the development blueprint the next 5 years.
And also, the inflation in Malaysia is actually expected to increase this year to 3.3, as opposed to 2.1 in 2013 last year. And this inflation rate, unfortunately, is predicted to go up next year, up to 5%.
That's pretty huge
prices.
jump. Yes.
It's very high, definitely, and especially if we go back to what we were discussing earlier about people in the suburban areas, people who are still in the villages, is not going to be easy for them. But even not just them, even for us living in the city, it will be a huge impact when the inflation rate goes up to 5% next year. How are we going to cope with that? Because as we know, the salary is not increasing, and that's another issue that we're facing. So
and also with the really high cost of living, I wouldn't say really, but compared to the salary that the people receive, the living cost is pretty comparably higher. And also with the introduction of GST to this country, definitely this is something tough when we see the 5% of inflation in this nation. So definitely something has to be something has to be done to this issue, so I'll say.
But however, there are a lot of economists who are of the opinion that these reforms are actually necessary to strengthen the country's financial position, and also to boost foreign investors' confidence, and also to afford sufficient space to support the country's economy. So if all these moves really strengthens the country's economy, and if we are indeed heading in the right direction, it's a good thing. But at the same time, the government has to make sure not to burden the people, especially people who are really not earning that much.
That's why that's when we've been having this system called BRIM, One Malaysia's People's Aid, to give out the cash handouts to people who need it financially. So this is to put up the burden and the impact of the rising cost of living on the lower income household. So we'll see how this BRIM works out, because he came with a new system, the BRIM to public. Even though there will be a lot of critics says about this effect of this, but then we'll see how the government itself will execute those plans.
Yes, we will. And moving on to Myanmar, which is also very scandalous in a way. And it seems that these Rohingya, we were just discussing about them earlier, they are actually being kidnapped and trafficked if what they're already facing in their own country is not enough. They are still, conditions are not improving, and they are being smuggled into Thailand apparently.
It definitely saddens us to read this news. People smugglers kidnap dozens of Rohingya refugees living in Bangladesh after with the fake job offers, and then trafficked them to rubber plantation in southern Thailand.
And what's even worse is they were not only tricked and given false hope, some of them were even sedated with anesthetics, so they were actually unconscious when they were being trafficked, and they were not aware about what's happening. But the good thing is the Thailand officials and police have reacted to this situation, and they have arrested a couple of Thai men who have been charged with this case.
And again, this Rohingya community, they are never treated fairly by the government or by the public, and they're always treated or mistreated, and always result in this kind of incident in certain countries.
And that's right, they are not only being discriminated in their own country, they are also facing all kind of deathly threats and tough situations outside the country as refugees. And even according to the UN, they are probably the most marginalized and the most oppressed minority group in the entire world. And as for Myanmar, they view their population, they have about 800,000 Rohingyas. And years and years have gone by, some have gone to live in Bangladesh, some have tried to flee the country, some are still there, they're still fighting for their rights, and a lot of them are actually in these UN-run camps in order to protect themselves. But there are a lot of rights groups who are also standing up for these people, and because they are termed as the stateless migrants, and they often fall into the hands of people like this, people who traffic, people want to make the most out of them, and especially in terms of money by selling them, offering fake jobs and everything.
But definitely Thailand, the nation said last year it was investigating allegations that some army officers in the kingdom were involved in the trafficking of Rohingya. So definitely they will do something about it, and they've been doing something about it. But again, the case of this do happen again and again. So there should be a stop to this mistreating these people, this community.
And Thailand is also being criticized in the sense that they being the base for pushing boatloads of Rohingyas entering Thai waters back out to the sea and holding migrants in overcrowded facilities. So Thailand also needs to it's good that they're addressing this issue, but they need to step up, especially in terms of guarding their coastal waters, to make sure that all this illegal migration done through the coast will be curtailed and doesn't get to the point where people are being smuggled when they are unconscious, because that really goes against every form of human rights there are.
For sure, yes. So moving on to the next topic, which is about Indonesia.
And Indonesia it seems like the markets are sliding down because opposition is shaking the confidence of the economic state in the country.
I mean, opposition is pretty strong when it comes to power and authority. And with their new PM and of the country, Jokota, all those young people to expect to see a few changes in the country. But again, the opposition, it's not a big surprise, but the opposition is doing something to shake the confidence in the government.
And let's move on to U.S. opposing China's answer to the World Bank. And for almost a year now, China has been pitching an idea to its neighbors, as we all know, a big internationally funded bank that would offer quick financing for badly needed transportation, telecommunications, and energy projects in underdeveloped countries across the region. And we knew that China recently almost became top of the world, but that didn't happen, of course.
Right. There was a false news.
It was a false alarm. It's still U.S., but of course China also has its plans, and they are very close behind, tailing the U.S. And Beijing has actually asked dozens of nations to contribute funds to the bank, which it calls the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. And they're hoping that this will actually become a global institution that could actually rival the World Bank itself. So to give it a broader scope, the Chinese have also invited and also won the support of a lot of Middle East wealthy nations, including Qatar, Saudi Arabia. But in this case, if Washington actually persuades South Korea and Australia to abstain, it would all but ensure membership in the bank would be limited to smaller countries. and thus depriving the prestige that China is seeking. But China is doing very well here. It seems it has the support of Qatar and Saudi Arabia, which is two of the very wealthy nations in the world, and this could actually be heading somewhere.
Yes, definitely. And also, some of them actually questioned how would the new institution add value and how would the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank be structured so that it doesn't undercut the standards with the race to the bottom. Like, a lot of questions are asked the senior officers who actually spoke on the condition of anonymity because the administration has asked its members to refrain from publicly criticizing the Chinese proposal.
And they also added that the bank, worried about competition from the Chinese, has begun to look at other ways to streamline its procedures. And the ADB has reason to be anxious, he said, because 50 billion in capital planned by China would immediately make the new bank a significant competitor. And the Chinese government has also tapped one of its top Chinese officials, Qin Li-chun, the former head of China's sovereign wealth fund and a former senior official at the ADB, to lead the new bank. So we have an entirely new bank coming up in Asia, so it's going to rival the World Bank. And
also economically as well.
Right. It's a massive effort by China to actually probably take over the world and make Asia the next strongest continent in terms of
China
economy.
is already a huge nation with really high populations, and with this new structure, the bank coming up, it will definitely compete against a lot of banks worldwide, and definitely affect the economic growth, not only in China but also neighboring countries and throughout the world.
And not a very good news from US. We have a Texas health worker who becomes the first person to contract Ebola in the US. And this Texas health worker contracted Ebola apparently after treating a Liberian who died of the disease at a Dallas hospital last week. And this is raising concerns about how US medical guidelines is aimed at stopping the spread of this disease were breached. So this is of course no light news. Ebola is it's a detrimental disease. It can lead to death. There's no question about that. And for someone in the US to actually die of Ebola now, it's definitely, it shows that it's a terrible outbreak, and we should really start to be, because we were very careful about it at first, and then it kind of died out, and then we just brushed it off as an African disease. Like, we don't really have to worry about it. It's not gonna come over here. And of course, US is really far, but
you never know when it can happen to you and your friends or family. So this is the type of disease that it can be very contagious, and that's when we need to be really aware. And US is still far away from Malaysia, but at the same time, we can never expect when it will reach to this nation itself, because the people there in Texas also never expected that she will be affected by this Liberian. But however, it happened to her, and then now the public has put a step forward to work on this disease. So it's also how the public is aware of what's going on, not only to know the name of Ebola itself, but then what it really does to you and how to protect against it.
And the Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf has also appealed to U.S. President for urgent aid in tackling the worst recorded outbreak of the Ebola virus. So hopefully they work together and come up with a way to curb this problem.
And they are also evaluating other potential healthcare worker exposures, because if this individual was exposed, of course, which they were, it is possible that other individuals were exposed as well.
And also, just before we wrap things up, there have been delays to ASEAN integration reining in expansion. So it seems that the Global Debt Watcher, in a report titled Inside ASEAN, released last week, noted that the expansion of Southeast Asian companies within the region has been largely limited, with cross-border acquisitions within ASEAN making just 9% of their overall expansion activities.
And also, ASEAN, it's composed of Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar. We all know that Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam, they aim to transform the region into single market and a production based next year. But then with a delay in the plan, we still, it comes with the concerns, but then we still need to work for the deeper financial integration, which is needed in ASEAN.
That's right. That is their biggest concern right now, to go for a deeper financial integration, because financially, of course, all the ASEAN countries are not exactly on the same tier. We're all on different ladders, but according to Moody, it seems that capital market integration is the cornerstone of AEC, and it will help to reduce barriers to the ASEAN cross-border activity over time. And apart from that, the ASEAN Banking Integration Framework also aims to achieve a multilateral liberalization in the banking sector by 2020 for ASEAN commercial banks, by liberalizing capital accounts and domestic financial markets in individual countries. So that's all the time that we have for today. Thank you so much for listening to us. And don't forget to, of course, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and we also have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, and as well as we have our own website, adrianasean.com. And please do download our TuneIn app and find us at adrianasean.com.
So we'll be back in a bit for our Blast from the Grassroots session. And till then, this is Gowri
and Grace.
So see you in a bit.